Marcus Reed stood before the crystalline doors of the Celestial Palace, his heart racing beneath his formal diplomatic attire. The massive structure loomed above him, its iridescent spires piercing the violet skies of Astra Prime. As Earth's youngest diplomatic envoy at 32, he'd been chosen for this critical mission, negotiating a defense treaty with the Asterian Empire against the advancing Void Collective. The doors dissolved like morning mist, revealing a corridor lined with guards whose armor seemed to breathe with living metal. Their faces were hidden behind masks that shifted colors with each movement, a display of Asterian biotechnology that still amazed him after 3 months of preparation for this meeting. Ambassador Reed, a melodious voice, called out. A tall, ethereal figure glided toward him. Her skin had a subtle silvery sheen, and her eyes held the depth of ancient stars. I am First Sentinel Kendra. The Empress awaits. Marcus followed Kendra through winding corridors that seemed to defy physical space. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, responding to their presence. Other courtiers they passed wore outfits that made Earth's finest fashions look primitive, living fabric that shifted and flowed like liquid starlight. The throne room doors parted, and Marcus's diplomatic training nearly failed him. The chamber was vast, its ceiling a perfect replica of Astra's night sky. At its center, seated upon a throne that seemed carved from pure light, was Empress Nyxera. She was nothing like the briefing holograms. Her presence commanded the room with an intensity that made Marcus's skin tingle. Her hair was a cascade of starlit silver, and her eyes, 3 of them, were the color of ancient amber. Her gown appeared to be woven from the very essence of space-time. Welcome, Ambassador Reed, Nyxera's voice resonated through the chamber. I trust your journey through the quantum gates was pleasant? Marcus bowed precisely as instructed. Your Majesty, I bring greetings from Earth's United Council. We are honored by your willingness to discuss an alliance. A slight smile curved Nyxera's lips. Such formality. Tell me, Ambassador, do you know why I specifically requested you for these negotiations? The question caught him off guard. I assumed it was due to my experience with the Centaurian Accords, Your Majesty. Nyxera rose from her throne, descending the crystalline steps with fluid grace. You possess something rare among your kind, Marcus Reed. You see beyond surface appearances. A valuable trait, given what's coming. Before Marcus could respond, alarms blared through the palace. The bioluminescent walls flashed crimson, and guards materialized from hidden passages. First Sentinel Kendra rushed to the Empress's side, her weapon already drawn. Void Collective vessels, Kendra reported. They've somehow breached our quantum barriers. Marcus's blood ran cold. The Void Collective, a mysterious force consuming entire star systems, wasn't supposed to reach Astra Prime for months. Their early arrival could only mean one thing: a traitor had given them access. In the chaos that followed, Marcus acted on instinct. He spotted the shimmer of a stealth field near the Empress, a void assassin. Without thinking, he threw himself forward, pushing Nyxera aside as a void blade sliced through the space she had occupied. Time seemed to slow. As they fell, Nyxera caught him with impossible strength. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Marcus felt something ancient and powerful stir in the air around them. Words in a language he'd never heard spilled from his lips, words that made the very fabric of reality hum. The assassin was quickly neutralized by the guards, but Marcus barely noticed. The strange energy coursing through him demanded his full attention. Nyxera's 3 eyes widened in what might have been surprise, or satisfaction. Do you understand what you've done? She asked softly, helping him to his feet. The alarms still blared, but they seemed distant now. I spoke something. What was it? Marcus felt dazed, his skin tingling where they'd touched. The words of binding, Kendra whispered, her tone caught between awe and concern. He spoke the ancient oath of the Starbound. Nyxera's expression was unreadable. Indeed. In saving my life, you invoked one of our most sacred bonds. The stars themselves have witnessed it. She paused, studying him intently. You are now bound to me, Marcus Reed, in ways your people have no words for. As the implications hit him, Marcus realized his diplomatic mission had just become infinitely more complicated. He hadn't just secured an alliance, he'd somehow sworn himself to an alien empress through magic he didn't understand, right as an impossible enemy breached their defenses. The throne room starlit ceiling rippled with disturbances as more void ships appeared in orbit. Nyxera's hand was still on his arm, and her touch sent waves of unfamiliar energy through him. Something fundamental had changed in the universe, and Marcus Reed was at the center of it all. What happens now? He managed to ask. Nyxera's third eye gleamed with an emotion he couldn't decipher. Now, my unexpected starbound, we face the void together. And perhaps we'll discover why the ancient magics chose this moment to bind our fates. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of emergency meetings and quantum calculations. Marcus stood at the window of his new chambers in the palace's secure inner sanctum, watching ships of the Asterian fleet move into defensive formations. The Oath's energy still hummed beneath his skin, a constant reminder of how drastically his life had changed. A soft chime announced Empress Nyxera's arrival. She entered without ceremony, her battle armor replacing the formal attire he'd first seen her in. The living metal shifted with each movement, its surface reflecting the room's ambient light. Your people are refusing my calls, Marcus said without turning. They think I've been compromised. Haven't you? Nyxera's voice carried an edge of amusement. She moved to stand beside him, her presence making the Oath energy surge. You're bound to an alien empress through ancient magic they don't understand. Their caution is logical. Marcus finally faced her. Was this your plan all along? Engineering a situation where I'd have to save you, knowing I'd speak the Oath? All three of Nyxera's eyes focused on him with laser intensity. You think me so manipulative? I think you're an empress fighting a losing war against an enemy that devours worlds. I think you'd use any advantage you could get. To his surprise, she laughed, a sound like crystal wind chimes. And that's exactly why the Oath chose you, Marcus Reed. You see clearly, even when it hurts. She gestured, and a holographic display materialized between them. But you're wrong about one thing. I didn't engineer your Oath. I engineered everything else to protect you once you made it. The display showed surveillance footage from the past 3 months. Marcus watched himself at various diplomatic functions, but in the enhanced footage, he could see shimming distortions nearby, stealth assassins, all poised to strike, all mysteriously withdrawn at the last moment. The Void Collective knew you were coming to Astra Prime, Nyxera explained. They've been trying to kill you since you were chosen for this mission. My agents have been keeping you alive. Marcus's diplomatic training kicked in, analyzing this new information. Why? I'm just an ambassador. Are you? Nyxera waved her hand, and the display shifted to show his genetic profile. Certain sequences were highlighted, pulsing with an energy signature he'd never seen before. Your DNA contains markers we've only seen in the ancient starbound. Those who could channel the power of the cosmos itself. The Void fears such potential. Marcus stared at the display, his mind racing. That's impossible. I'm human. You are. Nyxera's third eye gleamed. And that's what terrifies them. Humanity isn't supposed to have this potential. Not yet. Your existence suggests their calculations were wrong. Before Marcus could process this revelation, the palace's quantum sensors screamed to life. The holographic display shifted to show massive void ships emerging from fold space, their surfaces consuming light itself. How did they find us so quickly? Marcus asked, but he already suspected the answer. The Oath thrummed through him, responding to his rising anxiety. They followed your quantum signature, Nyxera confirmed. The oath's activation made you impossible to hide. She turned to him fully. Now you understand why I've been preparing for this moment. Why I needed you here, protected, when they finally came. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. You're using me as bait. I'm using you as a weapon, she corrected. The oath doesn't just bind you to me, Marcus. It binds me to you. My power, combined with your innate abilities. She extended her hand, and arcs of cosmic energy danced between her fingers. Together, we might actually stand a chance. The palace shuddered as the first void weapons struck its quantum shields. Marcus could feel the oath pulling him toward Nyxera, urging him to trust her, to join his strength with hers. But years of diplomatic training made him hesitate. And if I refuse? Then we all die, she said simply. The void ships are here in force. They'll destroy Astra Prime, then Earth, then every other world until the galaxy is consumed. All because they fear what you represent, the possibility that humanity might evolve beyond their careful plans. Another impact rocked the palace. Through the window, Marcus watched antimatter beams tear through Asterian fighter ships. Each lost life sent a spike of pain through his chest, the oath making him feel the deaths of Nyxera's people. Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? He demanded. Nyxera's expression softened slightly. Would you have believed me? That you carry the genetic key to powers that predate your civilization? That your species' potential threatens beings that exist beyond conventional spacetime? She had a point. Even now, part of him wanted to reject it all as an elaborate deception. But the oath's energy singing through his veins told a different story. As did the massive void ships darkening Astra's skies. First Sentinel Kendra burst into the room. My Empress, the outer shields are failing. We need to evacuate you immediately. Nyxera didn't move. Her eyes remained locked with Marcus's. The choice is yours, Starbound. But know that whatever you decide, the void will never stop hunting you now. The oath has awakened your powers. There's no going back to who you were. Marcus looked out at the battle raging above the city, then down at his hands where traces of starlight had begun to shimmer beneath his skin. The oath pulled at him again, and this time, he began to understand it wasn't just magic binding him to Nyxera. It was destiny. The aftermath of the void attack left Astra Prime's capital in chaos. Marcus stood in the palace's war room, watching holographic representations of damage reports flood in. His newfound powers had helped repel the initial assault, but at a cost. Using them had left him drained, barely able to stand. Nyxera approached, her battle armor still bearing scorch marks from their desperate defense. The neural healers are ready for you, she said softly. You need to rest. What I need are answers. Marcus gestured to the casualty report scrolling past. 3,000 dead in the first wave alone. If I'm so important to your people's survival, why didn't you evacuate the city? Because evacuation would have told the void exactly what they wanted to know. Nyxera's third eye pulsed with something like regret. That you were here, that your powers were real. First Sentinel Kendra entered, her normally pristine uniform showing signs of battle. The Royal Council is demanding an emergency session, Your Majesty. They're questioning your judgment. Marcus caught the subtle tension in Nyxera's stance. They don't approve of you binding yourself to a human. They don't approve of many things, Nyxera replied, her tone carefully neutral. Including how much of our defensive technology I've shared with Earth's forces. The implications clicked. You've been preparing for this. Not just my arrival, but a full alliance. The oath wasn't about controlling me, it was about proving to your council that humans could be trusted. A ghost of a smile crossed Nyxera's face. Perhaps you understand our politics better than I gave you credit for. She turned to Kendra. Arrange the council meeting. It's time they learned the full scope of what we face. The council chamber was a marvel of Asterian architecture, its walls lined with quantum crystals that recorded and analyzed every word spoken. 12 council members sat in a semicircle, their ceremonial robes rippling with barely contained energy. Marcus could feel their disapproval radiating through the oath bond. "You've compromised everything," Council Elder Varen declared, his silver-scaled face flushed with anger. "Binding yourself to an untested species, revealing our deepest secrets. I've secured us the only ally capable of helping us survive," Nyxera cut in. "Marcus's genetic structure proves what our ancestors' records claimed: humanity has the potential to wield cosmic forces. Forces the void cannot corrupt." Another council member, her skin shimmering like liquid mercury, leaned forward. "And what of the price? The oath doesn't just bind him to you, Empress. It binds our entire civilization to his species' fate. A fate already intertwined with ours," Marcus spoke up, surprising himself. The oath's energy surged, lending weight to his words. "The void doesn't distinguish between our peoples. Either we stand together, or we fall separately." The chamber fell silent. Marcus could feel Nyxera's approval through their bond, but also something else: concern. She was worried about him, about how quickly he was adapting to powers he barely understood. "Show them," she said quietly. Marcus hesitated, then reached for the energy humming beneath his skin. Starlight gathered around his hands, but this time he shaped it deliberately, forming a three-dimensional map of local space. Void corruption spread across it like black ink through water, but where it touched Earth's solar system, it seemed to recoil. "Your scientists have been wondering why the void avoids direct confrontation with Earth," he said, maintaining the display through sheer force of will. "It's because something in human DNA naturally resists their influence. Something that originated with the same ancestors who created the starbound protocols." "Impossible," Varen breathed, but his opposition had wavered. "The oath didn't create my abilities," Marcus continued, letting the map fade as exhaustion crept in. "It awakened what was already there. What's dormant in all humans. The void knows this, it's why they tried to assassinate me before I could reach Astra Prime." Nyxera stepped forward, her presence steadying him through their bond. "The choice before us is simple. We can deny the evidence of our own history, or we can embrace an alliance that might save both our species." The council chambers erupted in argument, but Marcus barely heard it. His vision swam, the strain of using his new powers finally overwhelming him. As he swayed, Nyxera caught him, her touch sending warmth through the oath bond. "Enough," she commanded, and the council fell silent. "We will reconvene after my starbound has rested. And then we will discuss not if we should ally with humanity, but how we can help awaken their dormant abilities before the void launches its next assault." As Nyxera led him from the chamber, Marcus felt the weight of the council's stares. But it was the weight of destiny that truly pressed down on him, the knowledge that his accidental oath might have just changed the course of two civilizations. "You knew," he murmured as they walked. "You knew what I was capable of before I ever set foot on Astra Prime." Nyxera's expression remained carefully neutral, but through their bond, Marcus sensed a complex mix of emotions: hope, fear, and something deeper he wasn't ready to name. "I knew what you might become," she corrected. "What your entire species might become, with the right catalyst." She paused, all three eyes focusing on him intently. "What I didn't expect was how quickly the change would begin. Or how it would affect me in return." 2 weeks after the council meeting, Marcus's powers had grown exponentially. He stood in the palace's quantum training chamber, directing streams of cosmic energy with increasing precision. Through their bond, he could sense Nyxera watching from the observation deck, her presence a constant anchor in his expanding consciousness. The attack came without warning. Reality itself seemed to tear open as void ships emerged inside Astra Prime's defensive perimeter, an impossible feat that spoke of betrayal at the highest levels. Multiple breaches detected. Kendra's voice crackled through the quantum comm. They're using some kind of dimensional phase technology. Our shields are useless. Marcus felt Nyxera's fury surge through their bond as she rushed to the war room. He followed, watching emergency broadcasts show void forces materializing throughout the capital. But something felt wrong about the attack pattern. They're not targeting population centers, he realized, studying the tactical display. This is a precision strike. Nyxera's third eye narrowed. The Royal Archives. They're after the genetic records of the Starbound. The chamber doors burst open as Council Elder Varen rushed in, his scales dark with agitation. Empress, we must evacuate. Our last line of defense has been. He stopped mid-sentence, eyes widening as a shimmer of void energy engulfed him. Marcus reacted instinctively, throwing up a barrier of cosmic force. But he was too late. Varen's form distorted, his flesh becoming translucent as something else took control. When he spoke again, his voice carried otherworldly harmonics. Such primitive defenses, the thing wearing Varen's body said. Did you truly believe we wouldn't find a way through your quantum barriers, Empress? We've had an agent in your court since before the human arrived. Nyxera's battle armor materialized around her. How long has Varen been compromised? Varen? The creature laughed. Varen died 3 cycles ago. We've been watching through his eyes, learning your secrets, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It turned its gaze to Marcus. And you, Starbound, are everything we feared. The genetic key to humanity's ascension. Marcus felt the oath bond pulse with warning as more void energy signatures appeared throughout the palace. Through their connection, he could sense Nyxera's strategic mind racing, calculating options. The archives, she said through their private bond link. Everything about the Starbound project is there. If they obtain that knowledge, they'll know exactly how to prevent humanity's evolution, Marcus finished. How to corrupt the process before it begins. The possessed Varen raised his hands, void energy crackling between his fingers. Your species was never meant to reach this stage so quickly. The oath wasn't supposed to exist for another 1,000 years. We've engineered your development for millennia, preparing you to be harvested, not to become a threat. Nyxera cut in, her voice cold. That's what humans truly are to you, isn't it? Not food. Not resources. But the one species capable of stopping you. The creature's form rippled. Precisely. And now we'll correct that mistake. Everything happened at once. Void energy exploded from Varen's body as Nyxera threw herself in front of Marcus. The oath bond flared between them, and in that moment, their powers merged completely. Time seemed to slow. Marcus felt Nyxera's consciousness intertwine with his own, centuries of knowledge and power flowing between them. Through her eyes, he finally understood the true nature of the Starbound Oath, not a chain of servitude, but a bridge between species, designed to unlock humanity's dormant potential. Together, they wove a shield of pure cosmic energy as void forces tore through the palace. Through their merged awareness, Marcus could feel the archives below, the accumulated wisdom of ages pulsing like a beacon. We can't let them reach those records, Nyxera's thoughts echoed through his mind. We won't, Marcus replied, drawing on their combined strength. But first, I need you to trust me completely. Her response came without hesitation. I already do. Marcus reached deeper into their bond, past the surface connection of the oath, into something far more ancient. The power that answered his call wasn't just his awakened abilities or Nyxera's royal lineage, it was the very force the void feared, the cosmic consciousness that humanity had been engineered to forget. As void-corrupted soldiers breached the war room, Marcus and Nyxera moved as one. Light exploded from their joined hands, not just illuminating the darkness but transforming it. Where their power touched the void energy, it didn't just destroy it, it converted it, returning it to its original, uncorrupted state. The possessed Varen screamed in frequencies that shattered nearby quantum crystals. "What have you done?" "Remembered," Marcus answered, his voice carrying echoes of ancient power. "You didn't engineer humanity. You suppressed us. And now we're waking up." The battle for Astra Prime became a race against time. As Marcus and Nixera fought their way to the Royal Archives, their merged consciousness revealed the full scope of the Void's deception. Humanity hadn't been engineered, they'd been shackled, their true potential buried under layers of genetic suppression spanning millennia. The Archives chamber was a vast repository of crystalline knowledge, its walls lined with quantum matrices containing the accumulated wisdom of the Starbound. Void forces had already breached its outer defenses, their corrupted energy eating through ancient safeguards. The genetic keys, Nixera directed through their bond. Third matrix, quantum level 5. Marcus reached out with their combined power, accessing the stored data. Images flooded his mind: Earth, thousands of years ago, when humans had walked among the stars. The Void hadn't emerged from deep space, it had been created as a weapon, one that had turned on its makers and spent centuries ensuring humanity would never rise again. All this time, he breathed, we weren't evolving. We were remembering. A blast of void energy nearly caught them as more corrupted soldiers poured in. Through their bond, Marcus felt Nixera's determination sharpen into crystal clarity. She had known pieces of this truth, had spent years preparing for this moment. The oath, she sent through their connection. It was never about binding you to me. It was about breaking the chains they placed on humanity. Understanding dawned as Marcus accessed more of the Archive's knowledge. The Starbound oaths weren't about servitude, they were keys, designed to unlock what the Void had stolen. Each human who awakened would weaken the suppression holding back the rest of their species. The possessed form of Varen appeared at the chamber's entrance, void energy rolling off him in waves. You understand nothing. Humanity's potential is a disease. We are the cure. No, Marcus countered, cosmic power flowing through him. You're a footnote. A failed experiment that's outlived its purpose. The creature laughed, the sound distorting reality around it. Then let us show you true power. The attack that followed wasn't just physical. The void entity tore through dimensional barriers, attempting to corrupt not just their bodies but the very essence of who they were. Marcus felt it trying to rewrite his genetic code, to reinforce the ancient suppressions. But the oath bond held. More than held, it grew stronger, spreading through the quantum matrices of the Archives, activating dormant protocols that had waited millennia for this moment. Through their merged consciousness, Marcus and Nixera began to understand the choice before them. The Archives contained a quantum signal that could awaken humanity's true potential, breaking the void suppression once and for all. But sending it would require the total sacrifice of their bond, using its energy as a catalyst. Do it, Nixera's thoughts brushed his mind. This is what the oath was meant for. Marcus hesitated. The bond between them had become more than just ancient magic, it was a connection he wasn't sure he could live without. There has to be another way. The void fears human potential because they know what you truly are, Nixera sent through their link. Not servants. Not soldiers. But equals. Partners. Her consciousness embraced his. And some bonds don't need oaths to survive. The possessed Varen must have sensed their intent. It launched itself forward, void energy condensing into a weapon that could corrupt everything the Archives contained. You'll doom both our species. Marcus met Nixera's gaze, all three of her eyes reflecting the same certainty he felt. Together, they reached for the Oathbond's power, not to wield it, but to release it entirely. The effect was instantaneous. Golden light exploded from their joined hands, racing through the quantum matrices. The Oath's energy, amplified by the Archive's ancient technology, shot skyward in a beam that pierced dimensions. Across Earth, humans began to wake up. Not to new powers, but to old ones, to the truth of who they had been and could be again. The Void's carefully constructed genetic suppressions began to unravel. The possessed Varen screamed as its corruption was burned away, not by force, but by the restoration of natural law. The Void entities weren't being destroyed, they were being reminded of their original purpose, transformed back into the guardians they had been created to be. As the light faded, Marcus felt the oath bond dissolve. The absence was painful, like losing a limb. But something else remained, a different kind of connection, one forged not by ancient magic but by choice. Nyxera stepped closer, her hand finding his. Without the oath, her touch was simply that, a touch. But it carried its own kind of power. What happens now? Marcus asked, watching as the transformed Void forces began to retreat, their darkness replaced by ancient purpose. Nyxera's third eye gleamed with something that might have been hope. Now we do what our ancestors intended. Not as master and servant, not as empress and ambassador, but as equals. There are more secrets in these archives, more suppressions to break. And more choices to make, Marcus added, understanding at last that the oath's dissolution wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Around them, the royal archives hummed with renewed purpose, its quantum matrices ready to help guide humanity's reawakening. Above, the skies of Astra Prime cleared as former Void ships transformed, their corrupt darkness replaced by the pristine energy of their original design. It would take time for both their species to adjust to the new reality. But as Marcus stood beside Nyxera, watching the sunrise of a new era, he knew they would face it together, not because of any oath or ancient magic, but because they chose to.